Hi, Govindh here for Paper Napkin Wisdom, Edge of the Napkin, where ideas go from the napkin to action. So, this week we're going to talk about choices. We make choices every single day, sometimes and very often without even realizing it, based mostly on what we like. So, how do you like your steak done, for example? Rare, medium, well done, crispy? On Thanksgiving, do you run for the light meat or for the dark? When you're thinking about your diet and nutrition, are you keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, or the seafood diet? You seafood, you eat it. Are you trying to build lean muscle or bulk up? Do you go to the gym or go outside? Do you need coffee that practically slaps you awake or a lighter roast that you can slip all day? Well, these are preferences, little decisions about taste, texture, and mostly comfort. But it doesn't stop there. We choose friends who do what we do. We find partners who share our interests. We even build our identities around our likes, our playlists, our sports teams, our Netflix queue. And in leadership, we double down. We read books like Start With Why. We define core values and we tell ourselves, I should only hire people who align with us. And that's not wrong. But it's easy to confuse alignment with values for agreement with me. And here's the pattern. We like what feels like us. We choose sameness. We surround ourselves with comfort, and comfort feels good. Comfort feels safe. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Comfort is rarely where growth lives. Every great story of transformation, personal or organizational, started in discomfort. A coach who pushed you harder than you like, a teammate who challenged you beyond your blind spot, a competitor who forced you to innovate. How many times have you heard stories about people hitting rock bottom, discomfort, pain, suffering, and found their way out of that? And that's the napkin story for today: growth or comfort. Pick one, because you rarely get both at the same time. We don't just make choices about food or friends this way. We interpret the world through the lens of what feels good to us, through the slice of reality that feels good to us. Let's take the Jimmy Kimmel story this week. His suspension after a controversial remark about Charlie Kirk lit up the news. And depending upon where you looked, you saw entirely different versions of the same event. There was a frame on one side, which was Kimmel crossed a line. Affiliates like Nexstar and Sinclair were absolutely right to pull the show. ABC acted responsibly, and FCC chair Brendan Carr wasn't censoring, he was protecting the public interest and warning against news distortion. There were news outlets that leaned into Carr leveling threats at ABC and Disney and even hitting other shows and warning who could be next. There were other news outlets that called Kimmel unrepentant and ABC as, long skirting their obligations, affiliates doing the right thing. Comfort here, notice, comfort here comes from rules, order, accountability. There was another frame where the people there said that the unusual part wasn't just Kimmel's joke, but it was the FCC's chair's public warning. And the sequence of it matters to this frame because the affiliates made their call first. ABC suspended him next and under visible regulatory pressure. The analysts in this frame emphasized the timing, the legal ambiguity, and the unprecedented nature of the FCC threat. There were some outlets that profiled Carr as an administration backed regulator at the storm center. There were people who called for his resignation. There were other news outlets that explained that this was all business mechanics, affiliate preemptions cascaded into the ABC's move. And there were other people who just did a what we know rundown. Again, leaning into sequence. The comfort here comes from the procedure, the balance, and the precedent. There was another frame. There were three frames. There was another frame here that this was completely coercion of speech, not even a control of freedom of speech, a lack of freedom of speech. It was coercion of speech. There were some who said that the FCC threatens and ABC caves. There were some who said that Carr was the media enforcer. And some people called it blatant censorship. The comfort in this frame comes from defending openness, freedom, and dissent from authority. Three frames, same facts, and three different comforts. Three different slices of reality that create comfort around the way they look at the world. And here's the kicker. If you only live in one frame, it feels obvious, safe, correct. But if you step back and you see they're all lenses, not one of them gives you the whole picture. Not one of them creates a comfort in the reality of the situation, because what is real? We're only getting a slice. And this is often what we do in life and in leadership. We collapse multiple perspectives like that into one that feels most like us, that we most recognize, that we can see, because we see the world as we are, not as it is. But remember the napkin, growth or comfort. Pick one. So, how do we apply this as leaders? How do we make this our own? How do we make this real? Well, first of all, we've got to notice the comfort trap. Ask yourself, am I choosing this because it's true or because it feels like me? The hire you just made, are they the best candidate? Or are they the one who looks and sounds most familiar? And that's a double trap, because the how that brought us there to this point right now is not the one necessarily that's going to take us into the future. We need to maybe find things that are less familiar. That book you loved, was it a great insight or was it just an echo to your existing beliefs? Think back to the last time you resisted an idea. Was it wrong or was it just different? You have to next separate values from preferences. Values are non negotiables: integrity, honesty, fairness. Preferences are negotiable: style, tone, approach. Too many times we confuse the two. And as leaders, it's really important to distinguish between values and preferences. A blunt truth teller and a soft storyteller can both anchor and hold and honor the value of candor. Providing a gentle truth doesn't make someone weaker than those who provide brutal honesty. But if you reject one because they don't sound like you're protecting comfort, not values. So here's an idea. Write down your top values as a company. Now, circle the ones that may need refinement because they're actually just preferences. Third, invite discomfort on purpose. This week, I was at a company retreat around a quarterly planning, and we spent time building discomfort, moving to an area that was going to challenge the way we looked at the world. Innovation happens at the edges. Friction is fuel. Disagreement is a good idea. So run meetings where maybe one seat, a physical space in the room, is reserved for dissent. Who will take the opposite view? Who will challenge our status quo? Who will help us look at the other side? Celebrate the voice that challenges, not just the ones that agree. When everyone nods in unison and in silence, ask, what are we missing? Make sure that every voice is heard. Take the time to provide the room for discomfort and friction and challenge. Growth means leaning into the differences. Finally, expand your lens. Think of your information diet. If you only read, listen, and listen and speak to sources that make you feel good, it shrinks your worldview. It shrinks your view of the company. It shrinks your view of what's happening in the environment. The same is true in everywhere in our life, in our business, and in leadership. Who's the customer you least understand? Who's the competitor who you dismiss too quickly? Who's the team member whose style makes you a little uncomfortable and may challenge you, but maybe they hold our next breakthrough? Maybe these people hold our next opportunity to leap forward. Growth means eating from more than just the comfortable buffet, moving outside of our normal plate. And what if you lived by this thought? Growth or comfort? Pick one. What if your next hire wasn't chosen for likeness, but for difference? What if when you hit an obstacle, you did the opposite of what you normally do? What if your next strategic move wasn't the safe path, but the stretch, the 10x? What if you couldn't figure out how to grow 5x and so you committed to 10 or 20? What if you treated discomfort not as a signal to retreat, but as evidence that you're in the right place for growth? Because here's the reality: comfort preserves the present, growth creates the future, discomfort creates the future, friction creates the future. And as leaders, we can't just live in the present. Leaders don't just live in the present, they create the future by pulling it into the present. So look forward. The choice comes back to you and me at the dinner table, in our friendships, in our hiring, in how we interpret the news. Growth or comfort? Pick one and make it a great day.